Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about, I think, the very appropriately named Andrew Goth's film, Gallowwalkers. So this is a weird Western film. It is a sort of Western zombie horror supernatural film, starring Wesley Snipes. He's very, very good in this movie. The sort of basic premise is Amon, who's the character played by Wesley Snipes, who's our protagonist. So I'm going to give this to you sort of in a linear fashion, but the movie is non-linear. We'll talk about that in a bit. So his mother was pregnant with him when she joined this order of the Sisters of San Diablo, who are charged with maintaining the barrier between the damned and the living. He is born, and she has to give him up because the sisters are like, you can't really raise a child on the portal to hell. That's not a wise plan. So she puts him in an orphanage. He then eventually gets sort of picked up by this woman who runs a random slaughterhouse out in the middle of the desert. He gets trained by her to be a butcher. He falls in love with her daughter. But then her daughter... So the mom and Amon go off to town to trade hides and stuff. And while they're gone, this gang of criminals shows up. They rape the daughter, impregnate her, and then Amon basically takes off for a while, learns that he eventually comes back. He learns that the girl had died, giving birth to a son who's now being raised by the butcher. And he essentially goes to murder the guys who raped her. So he kills... So they're all in prison. So he kills all of them except the son of the gang leader who had hung himself in the cell. And that's important because Amon is then riding through the desert. He dies. It's not 100% clear. One of the sort of gang members, who's a sort of auxiliary gang member, does shoot at him, but it's not clear whether or not Amon is hit or whether he just sort of dies of heat stroke or something out in the desert. But his mother finds his lifeless carcass because apparently she's always watching over him somehow. And she makes a deal with Satan that if that she will stay there and remain as his servant if he will bring Amon back to life. Satan's other condition is that everyone that Amon kills will come back as one of the damned, as a zombie, but like intelligent zombies, not like sort of Night of the Living Dead, like, oh, brains type zombie. Like they are like proper people. So more like the possessed, I guess. But it's not 100% clear that they are possessed by something else, as opposed to, like, the gang leader seems to still largely be himself. He has all his memories, he has his attitudes, he has his love for his son, who has not come back from the dead because Amon did not kill him, he killed himself. And so Amon has to sort of fight all of these dead people, himself being dead as well. So there's that whole wrinkle in the storyline. The majority of the movie... Well, I don't want to say the majority of the movie, but a large portion of the movie consists of Amon trying to get the gang leader to come to him, while the gang leader is gathering skins, basically, for himself and his gang. because apparently one of the drawbacks of being undead is that your skin decays. So they replace their skin with the skins of their victims, who they sort of, I don't know, mold onto their own bodies. And we actually, when we meet the undead gang leader again, he's just muscle and sinew. Like he has no skin on him. And he's just in this general store getting his boots shined, and the person shining the boots is just like, whatever, this seems normal, until they get murdered and their face gets cut off and put on him. So, that is somewhat less normal. But the gang finds this woman who was going to be hanged by this sort of weird cult thing, that just sort of hangs criminals or people it decides are criminals. So she was going to be hanged, and the gang leader's like, hey, you've got nice skin. I'm going to save you for when we resurrect my son, and then I'll put your skin on him. So yeah, that's sort of what ends up happening. At one point, the gang leader becomes aware that Amon is hunting them, and so he sends a bunch of his minions off to the butcher shop house thing to attack them and try and wipe them out. Amon and this dude that he rescued from being hanged, for some reason, not real clear why he picked that guy, but they defeat the undead minions by shooting them in the head. And then Amon goes off to face the big villain, rescue the woman, who he actually doesn't care that much about. And so that's where we ended up. They go to the sacred mountain of resurrection. The gang leader trying to bring back his son. Amon trying to finally kill him. And they have a final showdown. Literally. They draw their guns. Amon shoots first, kills the gang leader. There you go. So, that is sort of the linear structure of the plot. Like, if you put things in the chronological order they happen over the plot, not the plot of the movie, but over the course of events. That's the course of events. The plot of the movie is actually non-linear, which makes it somewhat more difficult to follow in the early portion what's going on and why. So initially we have this, I think, very interesting scene, not very first scene, but early on, where there's this dude standing on some random railroad tracks in the middle of the desert, and these three guys dressed as Monty Python's Spanish Inquisitors are sort of being driven up to him on a railroad handcart. They really missed an opportunity for a no one expects the Spanish Inquisition joke there. But that was the only thing I could think as I watched these three guys being brought in. But they confront this dude. They're like, because basically his job was to bring in Amon. He failed to do that. Their other gang member, Red, got murdered by Amon, basically ripped his head off, etc., etc. So, we don't at that point have enough information to understand the relationships between these characters, to know what's going on and why, etc., etc. So it is very much a movie that I think does a really good job building suspense, because this is the objective of that non-linear structure. It makes it harder to simplistically follow the storyline, and so we have to put pieces together as we get them. And I think it actually works really, really well in that sense. It challenges us to think differently about what's going on and to try and figure out what's happening and why. And structurally, I think it's really, really interesting. What I might have liked is actually some more explanation of a few things. We had very little information about the Sisters of San Diablo, even though they are very important to the movie. So that feels like it's missing. What exactly... So the weird sort of desert cult that hangs people in large groups is called Hammer of Enoch. We don't find out much about them, even though they're another weird, sort of really perplexing, interesting component. So, I don't know. I mean, I would have liked more information about some of these things, partially because I find odd, esoteric, religious sects somewhat fascinating. But also, I think these are really central components to the movie. And they end up functioning sort of incidentally because we don't learn that much about them. But overall, I think it's a really, really good, interesting movie. And this was actually a movie that last year for 2023, for my Halloween series, when I did Weird Westerns, I was going to do Gallowwalkers, but then Amazon Prime took it off of their... It left Amazon Prime, so I wasn't able to watch it last October. It came back by the end of December 2023, so I watched it the last day of December 2023.